Oh, cool.
Madam Mayor,
Jeanette?
Keith tried to jump in.
It's, Keith, is it okay? Okay, we'll go ahead and get started.
Much better.
I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. First, we have approval of the agenda. There are several changes. The first recommended change is the addition of the item to replace the banquet hall floor at the rec center. So if there are no objections, that will become 9G. The second recommended change is to add a staff briefing on the recent city flooding. If there's no objections, that will be 6C. And there's also a request to go into closed session. Are there any objections to going into closed session?
No.
Hearing no objections, I would ask City Attorney for the citation. Has City Attorney joined us by phone?
Dean, are you there? Did he test already? What's that? Hey, Dean, can you hear us? Did he already test?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see.
Were you only able to hear him before?
No.
Did he test?
What?
No.
No. He's on.
Is he muted?
He's logging off and logging back in. We should have tested him out.
Is Dean joining us via GoToMeeting? Okay. Okay.
He had to log off. He had to log off and he's logging back in. I should probably just dial in. Dean, is that you? Dean, can you hear us?
So that I can hear you. Can you hear me? He can hear us, but we can't hear him.
If the connection cannot be established, perhaps he could send the citation to you and you could read it.
Can you tell him to send me the closed session citation?
Is there a call-in number that he can use?
That's what I think he's trying. Yeah, I think he's caller 3, but for some reason it's not working.
Yeah, that's what.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm logged on 2 separate times, so let me log off the other one.
Yeah, right. As soon as he does that. Oh, no. Don't go.
Can he hear us? Can he hear us? Okay.
He said he-
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Dean, do you have the citation for closed session?
Yeah, it's paragraphs 5 and 8 of subsection 2.2-3711A Code of Virginia. There's 2 items for each one of those.
Okay, thank you. With that, do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Please join us in a moment of silence, and Councilmember Mensing, would you please join it? Would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is public comment time. Mr. Doyle Christian, please state your name, address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
I know it's too late. I got my notice in the mail about the increase of the water bills. Manassas Park is ranked the number 2 highest of taxes in the state of Virginia. So y'all want to drag the other citizens? We got a lot of senior citizens who can't make things do, but you want to take more money away from them. Why? You know, it's in the water, you can't even drink the water. It tastes so bad. And I know how many meters we got in the park as of 2021. It was 5,980. So Manassas Park making a killing. I don't know how much rate has gone up, but Manassas Park is making a killing on it. And another suggestion, y'all got public hearings? Y'all posted everything on the big billboards? Post it. People got things to do. They can't come up here every 2 weeks. They can't. But if they post it, and if it's something for them to, hey, I want to put my 2 cents into it, post it. Firehouse got open house on the 8th. You got that posted. You know, number 2, I'm going to bring back up again. Speeding on Manassas Drive. I've been out and about talking. There's a gentleman, lives almost in Denver. His truck's been hit 4 times. And 3 out of 4 has been totaled. And the guy says, or the driver, I'm only doing 25 miles an hour. Bull crap. Ain't no 25. I came down through here today. I tell you, I'm running 40. People pass me like I'm sitting still. I want radar. And third thing, y'all passed the law, I brought it up 2 weeks ago, about the commercial trucks. Do something. Do something with them. You say we passed it, we're going to start writing tickets. Like I said, a few weeks ago, I counted 18 of them. That's at 5 o'clock in the morning. You ain't supposed to be on the streets between 8 a.m. 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. They're there. I'm tired of people, you're talking to people, talking about Manassas Park. You live in the ghetto. That's the nickname. Have you lived in Manassas Park all your life?
I have.
Have you heard that? Yes. See? If y'all want to bring Manassas Park up to the level, you got to get rid of that name. You got to do something. And Mayor, I know you told me you can't make no comments, but if I'm up here talking or another citizen, just speak up, say, we hear you, we will discuss it. Instead of making me look like an asshole and wasting my time.
Oh, sir, that's not our purpose whatsoever, and...
But that's what people feel.
Yeah.
You know, and now saying, y'all want to save money? I've been doing research. 49% of Manassas Park employees make above and beyond their normal job pay. Hey, we done it. We froze pays until the lower people came on up, and that's one way. Instead of paying people high dollars that ain't doing their damn job, and I see it every day. And I ain't talking about the fire department or the police. For me, the police and fire, each of the guys need to make at least 100 grand. You know, because they are our backbone. They're out on the streets, putting their lives at risk. Some of you employees make more than me, and I work for a power company outside. Thing is, get back to the thing is, you're out of power in the middle of the night, and I show up to tell you how I feel.
It's been 3 minutes.
You want to come out and ask me
Okay.
what's going on, and I just stand there and look at you. You're going to run in, what's wrong with your guy? He won't even talk to me.
Okay. Sir, I've just been told that your 3 minutes is up.
No,
but
that's the reason I was trying to rush.
Right. Well, thank you so much, and believe me, we do hear you. We hear your comments. We take them seriously. It's not that we cannot respond. It's just that it's customary that we do not respond unless something...
I ask you just knowledge, saying, yeah, I heard you.
And we do. Yeah, and we do, sir. We really do. Thank you. And I thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Okay. Is there anyone else who is not signed up but would still like to make public comment?
I would like to
Yes,
make
go
a
ahead.
comment. So I'd like to thank the veterans that came out here last month. I wish we had more veterans show up. But I also like to thank the Gold Star mothers. You know, they went out of their way. Many of whom don't live here in Manassas Park. One family no longer lives here, but they came up here, and I want to thank them. Also, I want to for the folks at home that are listening, we are going to have a simple flag raising ceremony for the veterans flag. It will be in November. There'll be information coming soon. The city, I've been working with the city manager, and we've invited a number of veteran service organizations. And so once we have the date and the time secured, we'll get the word out to not only us on the board, but to the residents and especially to the veteran community, especially since the city was founded on veterans. It's just a nice way to give back.
Yeah.
So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, and let's please repeat this reminder at the next meeting and every meeting prior to... Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to recognition. 4A is a proclamation observing October 28th, 2022 as First Responders Day and flying the Thank You First Responders flag from October 21st through October 28th, 2022. Whereas first responders have consistently been a source of aid, hope, and comfort for all Americans, and whereas police, fire and rescue, and emergency management services professionals risk their own lives and safety to selflessly render service to communities across the nation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas the families of first responders also make significant sacrifices to support their loved ones' service, living with the reality that their spouses, siblings, parents, or other loved ones may not return home from the job and also deserve our appreciation and respect for bearing this burden. And whereas despite the challenges and dangers first responders face on the job, many first responders receive relatively low salaries according to figures from the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics. And whereas the City of Manassas Park recognizes the significant work and sacrifices of our first responders and their families, and we are especially grateful for their service to the City of Manassas Park. Now therefore, I, Jeanette Rischel, Mayor of the City of Manassas Park, Virginia, and on behalf of the Manassas Park governing body, hereby proclaim and recognize October 28th, 2022 as First Responders Day. Direct city staff to fly the Thank You First Responders flag from October 21st through October 28th, 2022, in accordance with the city's policy for flying flags from city flagpoles, and urge residents to recognize the contributions, the dedication to duty, and the sacrifices made by all first responders and their families. The recommended motion is that the governing body approve a proclamation recognizing October 28, 2022 as First Responders Day, and direct city staff to fly the Thank You First Responders flag from city flagpoles in accordance with the city's policy for flying flags during the period of October 21st through October 28, 2022, as presented.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. And this is the flag that will be flown. Do you want to? Sure. This is the flag that will fly.
Very nice.
Okay. There are no presentations. Moving on to information. 6A is an update on the Community Maintenance Working Group from Councilmember Hampton.
I'm going to start with number 2, slide 2. So about a year ago, we came to you all with the Community Maintenance Working Group, and you approved us for 11 months. So we're now, I should say 12 months, we're now at the point where we're hitting the 12-month mark, where there's a couple things I want to ask you tonight. I'm going to give you a brief on. One is asking for y'all's approval to continue for another year, because our time is expiring here soon. And the second one is to give you an update on the work that we're doing, including a cousin to the Winter Lights extravaganza. And so, like I said, we're here on, we're right between monitoring, adjust, and close. Okay. So we've been meeting June through September. I believe in June we met with the city manager to go over the recommendations that you all had approved, and the city manager is researching a few things for us, including working with the deputy city attorney and the person that is like the part-time code enforcer, to look at the different codes and start putting together some information for us so that we could use them, give presentations in this meeting, and then we can repurpose it for other things. The other thing that the city manager is helping us look into is the Keep America Beautiful, establishing a chapter, informal, then maybe eventually a formal chapter here, and part of that would be collecting the trash off the road. People would sponsor a street. What we as the committee are now working on is the Halloween Houses of Lights, which is the cousin to the Winter Lights extravaganza. And the other thing that we'll be working here, probably starting at the end of this month, is basically a community day of service of litter pickup that would happen in the spring. And then we hope to do it again next September as part of the September 11th Patriots Day, because I believe it was President Bush that said that one way we can honor them is doing a day of service. Could you go on to the next slide, please? And now we're going to talk a little bit about the Halloween Houses of Lights. And as far as I recall, we've never done this in Manassas Park. And so this is the slide, not the slide, but the poster?
Flyer.
The flyer that the whole entire committee's put together. We went through many, many discussions on names and many discussions on a family-friendly, not scary look and feel to it. And the idea behind it is that we'll be opening up here soon, asking people to register their homes. It'll be no cost, and there'll be a time, probably about the next slide, we'll see the dates. October 14th will be the registration deadline, and then the 21st through the 23rd will be the judging. We've had some notional discussions with the Boy Scouts again, since they love doing the Winter Lights extravaganza. During that week, we would announce who the winning homes are. We have a number of categories, everything from the houses that do a haunted trail, because there are a number of houses in the park that do it. What was it, best porch?
Best yard.
Yeah, best yard, and best outside. That could be a porch, it could be a window, it could be a number of things, and the yard sign delivery. And along the way, what we're doing based on the lessons learned, and you can see that I also made a grammatical error there. I don't know what positioning is, but sorry. We're going to be posting this here next week on the website. We need to talk to the city manager about having a drop-off box here at City Hall and Parks and Recreation, so folks that have paper copies can drop it off there. They can pick up paper copies in English and Spanish at the library and at Parks and Recreation and here at City Hall. We're going to explore the use of variable signs again, potentially around September 26th. And then we spoke to the city manager and last week to Parks and Recreation staff about whoever is the winning home, be the guest of honor at Trunk or Treat. And we're now going to be starting work probably this coming week on the Winter Lights extravaganza. So that's where we stand. And so what we need from you all tonight is, do we continue with this committee for another year?
Yeah.
Or do we cease? But we're making a lot of strides, and we're bringing some pride and some togetherness in the community. Just these simple things.
Yeah, I think it's important that it continues. My question is for City Attorney. In order to renew the working group, do we need a formal resolution, or will a vote be sufficient this evening?
Well, I was just going to pull up the resolution to see what it said, and you kind of caught me midstream there. So I would suspect you can just take a vote, and if necessary, then you can bring back the resolution next week to amend it if necessary.
Okay, I couldn't, his voice was garbled.
He said that he recommends that we could take a vote, and if we need to redo the resolution, we could bring back the resolution, the corrected resolution or updated
Vote
resolution.
tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
If necessary, I have to check the resolution to see what it says.
He's double checking Jeanette to see what the resolution has to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor of continuing the Community Maintenance Working Group and having a resolution brought back to us?
Yes.
Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Do we have a
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Sorry for the confusion. Okay. Next, we have Parks and Recreation briefing on the July 4th event. Good evening.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Good evening, Mayor and governing body. My name is Kaylin Collier, and I'm the Recreation Specialist Events for Parks and Recreation. And tonight I'll be giving you a July 4th recap. So on July 15th, we conducted an after-action review. That's just kind of where we go over any improvements we could make, what we're doing well, what we need to kind of work on, and anything else that we need to go over. I did not include in the fireworks section, but we are looking to look at an electronic firing, which would essentially make the show a little shorter but more intense, less breaks in between. So that's something we're looking at to possibly do in the future. We did a final check-in before the fireworks went off, and we found that this worked really well. Essentially, Command Post checked in with all of the various departments throughout the whole site, and then we kind of made sure everybody was good before we allowed the fireworks to go off. And then the location behind the softball field still is the best location that we've been able to find to make sure people aren't getting into the space and they're not in danger of being in the fallout zone. We estimated several thousand for attendance, and then we learned some lessons. We did add an additional food truck after the feedback from last year. We had another dessert truck. This upcoming year, we'll be looking to add another food truck. We saw some comments on Facebook asking for hamburgers, hot dogs, cookout food, so that's something we would like to look into adding. And then we added a QR code so that people could kind of take a picture of the map at the front, but they didn't have to keep coming back to reference it. That way they can kind of have it on their phone and kind of keep it with them. They know where everything was as far as anything that they needed, bathrooms, food, all of that. And then we also got 2 additional restrooms, which we found really helped with the lines. There was the long lines down the hill this year, so we found that really helped a lot as well. So the crowd size estimate, we guesstimated about 2,500 that attended. The marketing, I'm not going to lie, I'm not great at Facebook marketing, but it looks like we reached a lot of people. We got a lot of responses, and I believe we just did a budget of like around $20 and reached quite a few people with that small amount as well. And then these are just some pictures from the event, just the people, families that Keith and Lauren were able to go around and kind of capture them having a good time. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
It was a wonderful event, absolutely wonderful, and we appreciate everything staff did. Are there any comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember Hampton.
Is there any thought of bringing some sort of type of amusement, like having the high school choir or band play? I know in Fairfax City they do that. Granted, they have an orchestra, but they play beforehand and kind of keeps people entertained. Mm-hmm. Is there any thought to that?
So there is. We want to make sure that kind of like that. We want to add music, maybe live bands, amusement, things for kids, moon bounces, hopefully one day some rides and stuff like that. And eventually I know we want to make it like a full day kind of thing instead of just fireworks and food. So that is on the books. We just haven't been able to get that, but that's a really great idea. So thank you, because I can definitely ask the band.
Yeah, it's free.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Comments or questions? Yes.
Go ahead.
I noticed at the end of the event that the trash cans were kind of overflowing. Will you guys be considering adding more next year?
So yes, and we actually did not get as many trash cans as we requested due to, they said, with the different COVID stuff going on, we got less than what we wanted. So next year I will be ordering them extra early and making sure that we get them more than in time, and then hopefully we'll get all of them. But yes, that's on the books.
Caitlin, what a wonderful event. I thoroughly and our family thoroughly enjoyed it. I would agree that the timing on the fireworks needs to be sped up some.
Okay.
And so maybe an automated system might improve that. But it was a wonderful fireworks show, just the timing between.
Yeah, there is some breaks.
And just also kudos to those who worked traffic control. It was really easy getting in and out, and just after the event, just well managed.
Thank you.
And, really wonderful event, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No? Thank you very much, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Okay. And next is 6C, and that would be the staff briefing on flooding in the city.
Update.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the governing body. So tonight I'm going to give an update on drainage issues across the city based off of the rain event yesterday and the questions that were asked of me via email in the last 24 hours. I'll be joined by our city engineer, Alan Rowley, who will go over the update to the drainage engineering studies that we're doing right now as we proactively look to address this issue. So I'm going to answer some of the questions that were raised in the emails, and I'm going to turn over to Alan just to give a an update on what's going on with the actual study. So one question was what preventative measures are taken to enable drainage to occur. So Public Works crews before rain events will go out and check storm drains to clear them out, to make sure that that they can do their job as they're designed to do, and that's the key word, designed to do. That's going to be, you're going to see that theme come up later. What caused some of the flooding yesterday? So there was no evidence of prior clogging of the storm drains. Really the flooding, what it had to do was two things. So the volume of rainfall, but also the short duration of time which the rainfall came in just overwhelmed the drainage system. So if you notice on the western half of the city, when that was developed a long time ago, there were different regulations in the state, different regulations in the city as it related to stormwater. If you look at the eastern half of the city, you have less of these issues because there was different development standards as well. So the design of the pipes and catch basins on the western half of our city provide less drainage capacity than when you compare that to the eastern half of the city. And that's kind of what our ongoing effort's going to be on the west side of the city, is kind of how to modernize the infrastructure to improve drainage on that side of the city as well. So did closing well lots impact drainage? That was one of the concerns, is that in the city we used to create or extract our own water. Now we buy our water, of course, from Prince William Authority, or really from Fairfax County via Prince William, and then also the city of Manassas. So we don't produce our own water, so sorry about the taste, but we don't produce our own water anymore that we used to. We used to pull it out of the well lots, but those were shut down. But well structures don't actually, all they do is extract water from the underground. They don't assist at all with drainage. So shutting those down would not impact drainage whatsoever. And then what's the plan to improve storm drainage? So an update was requested on the engineering study that was approved by the governing body last year, or earlier this year. So the city, we've been proactively evaluating this. We talked about this, just I want to say under a year ago, about the changing climate, the increased rainfall, the rain events becoming just more frequent, and the need for the city to proactively start addressing some of these issues, and especially evaluating the western half of our city, which again has older drainage infrastructure, and seeing how we can again modernize that. But there's a lot of, you'll see here in the next few slides, there's a lot to that. So bear with us as we plan this, and bear with us as we have the ongoing CIP discussions. But you're going to get an early hint before we were ready to present. But again, you guys wanted an update on where we're at and some initial findings. So you're going to get some very preliminary evaluation of what's going on and what some of the costs are going to be to address some of these issues. So I'm going to turn it over to Alan Rowley to cover that.
Thank you, Laszlo. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here tonight to talk to you about drainage. On January 18th, 2022, the governing body approved 2 drainage studies, one along Kent Drive north of Manassas Drive near the Public Works Building, and the other one was upstream of Courtney Drive. This particular slide shows the drainage area that services, does this mouse work?
It does, yeah, we can see it.
Oh, okay, I couldn't see it. This.
Hold on, let me turn that into a laser pointer.
Oh, thank you, Laszlo.
Do you want to go to the previous slide, or?
No, this is, oh, yeah, I want to go back.
One second. All right, I'm going to change to a laser pointer. Can you also?
Nice.
Yeah.
You can't see it on that screen, unfortunately, but on this screen, so please look at the screen for the, you can see it on yours, so.
Yeah, thank you, Laszlo. So this is Courtney Drive here, and the drainage area stretches all the way up past or right to Scott Drive. So it's really a very significant portion of the western side of the city. This area here is not shown as being modeled because there's an open stream there. They did model the stream separately, but this is the drainage area. I'd like to emphasize that when we work to address drainage issues, we should remember that there is no way to completely eliminate risk. Any project to improve drainage reduces the risk, but there's always the chance that a larger event will come along and then you will continue to have drainage issues. This map here was submitted by Bowman when they did their 30% submittal, and it shows the areas in the Courtney Basin that are inundated by the 10-year event. In the course of their study, they determined that the city has 3 issues with the drainage system. The first is that a lot of the catch basins are too small for the area that drains to them. The second issue they identified was that a lot of the pipes also have capacity issues for the design event. And some areas actually will need more catch basins. The last map was actually from the 75% submittal. This one is from the 30% submittal, and it shows a relatively modest set of improvements from just making catch basins bigger. You can see like this neighborhood right here. I'll get the hang of this. Suddenly, some of the flooding or some of the drainage issues disappear at that location. This next exhibit shows the improvements to drainage by taking existing pipes and making them larger. This final map shows the results of both increasing the size of the catch basins, increasing pipes, and adding more pipes. At the 30% stage, we asked Bowman to break the number of projects up into smaller pieces that would be easier to digest and program. You'll notice that this project here, projects 1, 2, and 6, are all independent. They can be performed and not have an impact downstream. However, projects 3, 4, and 5 all run along Manassas Drive and impact each other. Typically, you would implement drainage problems from downstream moving upstream, because if you start upstream, you're getting more water into the system, but it can't get out because of the bottlenecks downstream.
And now, if I can just add too, if you notice this map, this is covering the areas that were of concern yesterday, and from the emails yesterday about the weak drainage that we had yesterday. These projects cover that. So remember, there's 2 studies. We're showing you the study that covers the areas of concern yesterday, but we're also looking at other areas on the west side. But this project here, or these projects cover the majority of the western half of the city.
Projects as broken out, here's the price tag on them. The projects related to the flooding along Manassas Drive are projects 3, 4, and 5, and those total right around $6 million, is that right? $5 million. I don't have my calculator, I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's close enough.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you, Alan. Comments or questions? Councilmember Moore?
Yeah, well, I appreciate, Alan, the presentation. It's really illuminating to see the maps, the drainage in our city. So the price tag, the $5 million. So I'm assuming that these projects 1 through 6 are part of our CIP?
Not yet, because we're having our formal briefing from Bowman on the 75% submittal next week. So their work is not completed yet, but we will be programming these.
So once the studies are complete and they come back with recommendations, we're going to present to you the full report, full recommendations, and then you'll have a motion there. If you want us to add it to the CIP, we can add it in chunks. We can look for financing options, right, where we try to get them done relatively quicker and then try to finance it over the long term, if that's available. Again, we're not yet at our debt floor where we can incur new debt, or where I don't recommend we incur new debt. So that's the issue, but there are certain environmental companies that will provide kind of financing mechanisms where they'll do a lot of the work work, and then you can pay over a 10-year period with the company directly. So those are, we're not there yet. We're still in the study phase. Alan and Calvin and the team still have to evaluate the recommendations made from Bowman, have a little bit more back and forth, and then before we bring anything back to you all, but we just wanted to let you and the residents know that we are looking at these issues proactively.
Mr. City Manager, are any of these projects shovel-ready? Because I know the infrastructure bill that the President passed would be looking for shovel-ready projects that we could apply for federal funds for.
Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, they are not. This is just an evaluation of what we need to do versus the
They are nowhere
design.
near shovel-ready.
Yeah.
This is basically a capacity analysis, and the information we'll be getting from Bowman will simply be a first cut, a concept plan, if you will, which once projects are identified in the CIP, they can be bid out for actual design. The other thing that happens is, I mean, one of the reasons these maps, I didn't show any maps that show potential sewer lines, is because there's no way to tell at this point if that's where they would actually wind up being. You don't know ahead of time what the underground utilities that you're going to have to deal with are.
So it sounds like we're really in the infancy stages of planning our storm drain system. So for our residents who have these, we have these storms come up, and with climate actions taking place all the time, we're not knowing what the weather is going to be like, but we know it's getting worse. Do we at least offer sandbags? Can a family go, they know that they have flooding in their house when it floods heavily all at once, can they go to Public Works or somewhere and get sandbags? And do we advertise that if we do?
Good evening. So the unfortunate part about this storm was that it wasn't really even anticipated. If you watch the weather, there was like a 61% chance of rain. Wasn't supposed to be substantial. Wasn't substantial at Manassas Airport. Wasn't substantial at Uosa. So north and south by a mere few miles, they barely got any rain. But this cell hovered right over Manassas Park. I was kind of amused because the radar didn't really seem to change over a period of 30 to 40 minutes. The storm just sat over us. But yes, anytime we can predict heavy rains, flood potential, we always offer sandbags to the public to come pick them up at Public Works. So we have a whole operation set up where we've designed methods to fill bags, and we do offer sandbags when we can predict storms. This storm, we would not have had the time to go ahead and start assembling sandbags and make them available to the public, but plenty of hurricanes, forecasted, long-term forecasted storms, we do offer sandbags to the public.
That's reassuring. Thank you.
Yeah, in the last few years, whenever we had risk of a hurricane or tropical storm, we've usually activated the EOC, we've come up with planning, we've gotten the calls with the state, and we started advertising that far in advance.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up?
No.
Okay.
Good.
I do have a follow-up, and this is probably more towards the city manager. It's not the first time that we've had flash flooding in that area. I know back in July 2015, we had flash flooding because I remember my brother was at the house, and it was his day off, and he left and kind of marshaled the resources. I believe we had flash flooding there, I think, in 2011 when we had the storm just kind of sit over the whole entire DC metropolitan area, and it took like 3 hours to get home. And I know back in the 80s there was flash flooding because I was back when my brother was in the volunteer fire department. So with that being said, we know we have this issue with flash flooding. So what do other jurisdictions do when they have areas that are prone to flash flooding? I know that Fairfax County has these little signs that they pull it down, it says don't drive through. But can we look into that and see what other type of short-term recommendations or beyond sandbags that we can offer the residents? Is it, do we now start looking at ways that people can kind of keep the roads kind of clean from garbage so it doesn't go down in there, so when we do have the flash flooding, that our sewers aren't over, it's one way to kind of help increase the capacity. Do Nvta start looking at what Falls Church was looking at last year? Because they were having problems with erosion and flooding because of the taking down of the small homes, building the big homes, taking down the trees. So now there's no longer anything there to draw up some of the, to, I guess, absorb some of that water. Is some of this problem the fact that that, we also have a number of homes on the west side that have converted their backyards from grass and such to graveled parking lots or large structures of cement. Is that also adding to this as well?
Yeah, we can certainly look at what other jurisdictions are doing, and we can incorporate that. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the development's already occurred on the west side, and even those measures about keeping the streets clean, again, that would not have stopped what happened yesterday. It's really a design issue of how the west side was designed, what the standards were, and it's working for how it was designed. It's just the storms are now more intense, so we're going to have to make these investments to expand the capacity. That's really going to be the ultimate way to do this, but that doesn't mean we can't look at what other jurisdictions are doing for short-term answers.
I think short-term we have to, and I do think to some degree, anything we can do to keep garbage out of the sewers will help, at least, if not nominal, it's something. And I can tell you yesterday, you saw the pictures of my front yard, and I'm not on Manassas Drive, and I know that water was probably a good foot from the, the gutter on the roads. So it's just bad. But anything we can do short-term to help these residents, we'd be most appreciative. As we know, we had that one resident now, she's finally got her house fixed after 2 years, and the house is ruined again. I know of at least her house and one other resident who had water in their cars, and those are the ones I just know of. So anything we can do short-term while we're waiting for this long-term measure, we've got to put in place. Even if it's like a robocall, if we're underneath some sort of flood warning, which we were yesterday, maybe that would help, so then residents could be alert and take some preemptive measures.
So again, we do have those, the robocalls, those come from the National Weather Service. To Calvin's point, this was a unique, and we've had that unfortunately in the last few years, like when the culvert collapsed, where overall it's not an overall large rain event in the region, so you didn't get the National Weather Service call, because if people will complain to us all the time that they're getting these robocalls about these events, so we do a lot of that. Believe me, we get complaints from residents who don't want to hear it, but we do a lot of those, and we continue those. Those are emergency events. But yesterday's event was unique in that there was no advance warning, and the rain system decided to do what it wanted to do and just hover over our city and provide a significant amount of rainfall within a very short time, and there was no way to prep for that one.
So in other words, nobody on the street while it happened that saw that rainfall come down? I was in the house and I couldn't even see outside the window. I was on a conference call. And I think that's the other part that concerns me, and what I heard from some of the residents was there no one on the street that saw this, that made a phone call to someone?
For what purpose?
Because it's a slight emergency. When those roads were extremely flooded. If anything, to stop traffic from coming through. Just anything. And that's a concern.
We can implement those measures if a road is not passable.
That was at least a good 30, 40 minutes.
30, 40 minutes?
Right.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Are there any follow-up? Do you have a follow-up?
No.
Okay.
I just know that getting a phone call at 9:20 at night is they have every right to be upset. And it's also a little disturbing, but they have every right to be upset.
Comments or questions?
Yeah, I just got
Yeah, go ahead.
So the studies, did they send you a recommendation of how to address some of these issues yet, or not yet?
No, what they're going to be submitting to us are options for us to pick from.
Okay.
But they're not mutually exclusive options, so the more you want to do, the more you can do.
Right, will they present us?
Yeah, you saw a glimpse of it, so it's summed up in 3 points. You make your catch basins bigger, you make the pipes that are flowing from the catch basins bigger, and you add more pipes. Those are kind of be the 3 options, but again, doing all 3 will then just make the system work even better.
Right. And then the other piece that happens is once an award's been made to do the design, then they'll get into the nitty-gritty of what's actually going on in that neighborhood in a more detailed manner than even Bowman has done so far.
How do you pay for it?
Do you have a follow-up, Missy? No? No? Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you think it would be beneficial to do like an educational type of thing for flooding for that area. I don't know if they're new residents, because it's been happening since 20 years ago since I moved here, but I know that they've moved in and out, at least the ones with the brick house, I know they've sold that house 3 or 4 times already. So do you think that an educational part for residents to know that there's potential flooding going on in that area?
It couldn't hurt. It really couldn't hurt.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes of August 23rd, 2022, approval of the recommendation to the Circuit Court for appointment of Mr. Kevin Brendel to the Board of Equalization, approval of reappointment of Ms. Linda Sanchez to the Social Services Advisory Board, and approval and authorization for the mayor and the city manager to sign the FY22 audit engagement letter from Robinson, Farmer and Cox Associates in an amount not to exceed $56,200 as presented in the packet, subject to conditions stated in the engagement letter and to final review by city attorney. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 9A. 9A has several parts to it. Normally, the governing body designates a vice mayor after each governing body election. Because former Vice Mayor Preston Banks has left the governing body to relocate for employment purposes, it's necessary to choose a new vice mayor. I believe there has been some interest in that position. Who is interested in that? Yes.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to motion that we appoint Alana Mensing as our vice chair.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. It has
Excuse me,
moved and
can we
seconded.
clarify vice mayor? It was vice chair. Can you
okay,
restate that to vice mayor?
Yeah, motion vice mayor. Thank you.
Do we need to correct, do we need to re-motion?
I don't think so.
Okay, okay. Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Congratulations, Vice Mayor Mensing.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words?
I'm sad that Preston has left, but I'm honored to fill his shoes, and I'm very appreciative for all of your support. Thank you.
Okay, super, thank you. Okay, part 2 then. Next part is for signing authority at the bank. Traditionally, it has been the duty of both the mayor and the vice mayor, so I would recommend to everyone that our new Vice Mayor Mensing have that signing authority. Are there any objections to that? Okay, hearing none, the motion would be that the governing body designate Vice Mayor Mensing as an authorized signatory for city warrants and checks. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Once we notify the bank who our choice is, they will send the city a resolution with the names filled in, and that will probably come back to us next Tuesday. Okay, moving on to 9B. 9B, we'll be taking numbers 1 and 2 together since the resolution deals with both city representatives. We need to replace Preston as our city rep to the Virginia Rail Express and also to approve or confirm the alternates for the PRTC. It would be really nice to have a third alternate, so if anyone is interested, please say so. Okay. Now, those who have so far indicated interest are listed on the cover sheet. Does anyone have any objection to the listing on the cover sheet? Okay, hearing no objections, I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution just for the sake of clarity. Whereas by bylaws of Potomac Rappahannock Transportation Commission, PRTC, requires formal resolutions from each jurisdiction for commission appointments, and whereas Preston Banks has resigned effective September 10th, 2023, no, this is 22. That's a misprint. Okay. September 10th, 2022. And whereas the governing body of the City of Manassas Park, Virginia, by resolution appoints the following as city representatives to to the Potomac-Rappahannock Transportation Commission. PRTC City Representative Jeanette Rischel, Mayor, continue to serve as City Representative. First alternate, Vice Mayor Alana Mensing. Second alternate, Council Member Darrell Moore. Third alternate, unfilled. Be it further resolved that Vice Mayor Alana Mensing is appointed as the Virginia Rail Express Board Member, and Council Member Darrell Moore is appointed to serve the city as first alternate on the Virginia Rail Express Board. Be it further resolved that all representatives will serve at the pleasure of the governing body until their terms expire on council. Do we have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we would need also to appoint an alternate to the Nvta. Preston was also the alternate for that, so I would recommend that our new Vice Mayor Mensing also fill that responsibility. Are there any objections? Okay, hearing none, the motion is, do we have a motion for Vice Mayor Mensing to serve as an alternate to the Nvta?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is the Cigarette Tax Board, and I would mention that City Manager Laszlo Palko has graciously agreed to attend this board if no governing body member is able to attend. Is there anyone who is interested in being the city's rep on the Cigarette Tax Board? Okay, Laszlo, you're it. Okay.
Thank you. Can I ask that you guys designate me and then Pon Yusuf as the alternate? Because usually for each jurisdiction, it's either a council member, the city manager, town manager, or the finance director, and usually all those are different alternate positions as well. So in this case, the city manager would be the designee, and then the finance director would be the alternate.
Okay, finance director, okay. The motion would be that the governing body appoint city manager Laszlo Palko to serve as the city's representative on the Northern Virginia Cigarette Tax Board, and appoint the finance director as the alternate to Mr. Palko.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 9C. 9C is Manassas Park Community Center furniture replacement. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body. I'm here tonight to talk about the community center furniture. After 13 years of heavy use, the banquet hall and multi-purpose room furniture has reached its end of life. Many of the banquet hall tables have come apart, and the banquet hall chairs are stained and tattered. The multi-purpose room tables have not fared any better. Many of the tables are cracked or missing chunks out of the corner. So in order to be able to continue to have rentals and provide tables that look good, we need to renew the furniture. So we got quotes from 3 different companies. Verco was one of them, School Outlet was another, and Worthington Direct. They were all for Verco furniture, Verco brand. That's what we used, or what we have in the building now. It's held up well for 13 years. It comes with a 10-year warranty, so we wanted to continue with the Verco brand furniture. We are going to do like-for-like furniture, so what we currently have that may be in better condition can stay, and we're going to add new furniture that will match it, so it's not going to stand out terribly. We really just need to get rid of the old furniture that's in really bad shape. So we got quotes for $59,931.19 from Verco, and the others were above our budget, but again, for the same amount of things. So that's what we got.
Okay, thank you. Has it been 13 years already?
Almost.
Okay.
It will be in January.
Any comments or questions?
Just a quick
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
So if the material, not the material, but if the furniture starts to become, you have to forgive me, it's been a long day, ruined, during the warranty period, we're definitely going to go and get a replacement?
Yes, I didn't know that our furniture had a 10-year warranty on it, the previous furniture, so there was some furniture probably throughout, the first 10 years that we discarded, not knowing that there was a warranty on it. So I'd already talked to staff on the furniture that we can. We're going to put stickers on the bottom that say, this furniture is on a 10-year warranty until this date, contact this guy, if it should break. So, for some reason, I'm not aware that it's broken or I'm not here, somebody else will be able to help take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
A follow-up? Okay, comments or questions? Yes?
Well, this is exciting. Will the used furniture be considered surplus?
That's my plan, but a lot of it needs to go in the trash, unfortunately. The banquet hall tables, of the 25 that we have, at least half of them, the tops are taped on. So those will go in the trash. Those that are left that, may be somewhat usable, we may store in the cart barn for random special events that we might have if we need them, and the rest will go to surplus.
Okay. And is there any supply chain issues with Verco? I mean, if we put the order in, how soon will we get our tables and chairs?
I believe he said 6 to 8 weeks, so there is somewhat of a lag time, but it's not the worst that I've seen.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I just have one
Yeah,
comment.
go ahead.
The old furniture, the ones that can't be salvaged, do you think it's a possibility that we could donate them to maybe a couple of churches and, mosques and synagogues in our local area?
Certainly, yes.
Some of them I know ask, their followers for, furniture and stuff, so I think this would be a great opportunity.
Whatever you guys tell me to do with the furniture, I will take care of it.
Thank you.
Even the ones that you said are fit for the trash, are they still usable to Councilmember Javed's suggestion?
We're currently using them now, so if somebody, wasn't upset that they had tape on their banquet hall table, they would be fine. Now, some of the rectangular tables, they're probably not going to want because they're literally missing chunks out of the corner, but they do serve their purpose, and if you have a cover, no one would be the wiser.
Okay, super. Then donating is a tremendous idea, definitely.
Same with the banquet hall chairs. They're not in terrible condition, except that they're stained and they're tattered, so when you're having a wedding, they may not be the best, looking feature, but I'm sure a church service or something, would be happy with them.
Sure, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay. The staff recommended motion is that the governing body approves and authorize the city manager to sign any necessary contractual documents for the purchase of furniture from Virco, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $59,931.19 as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I got one more last question. So how's the condition of the projectors?
It's a great question. There's only one on side A, that's the side that's closest to the admin wing.
Okay.
We removed the one that was on side B. Side B one wasn't used as frequently as the side A, because the side A is the one that projects to the entire room. So when side A went bad, we moved the projector from side A to side B, or side B to side A. Since it's sometimes hit or miss, it really just, it has a mind of its own sometimes, unfortunately. That was approved last year to have CTSI come and replace it. The plan is January. We have the entire banquet hall blocked off so that we can't have any rentals in there in January. So my hope is that we'll have the new furniture in January, we'll have the new projector in January, and then I'll be coming back here in a few minutes to talk about the banquet hall floor. And so I'm hoping that we can get all that done so that by January we'll have, a really nice looking banquet hall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to, 9D, the Fugro Road analysis results. Good evening, Calvin.
Good evening, Mayor Rischel, Vice Mayor Mensing, members of council, citizens, staff, and guests. I'm Calvin Odell, the Director of Community Development. Give me a second while missing the folder.
What are you looking for?
Oh, just go down to, yeah, hold on. I do this all day long. Go down to there.
Looking for the maps.
Yeah,
You got attachment 2, attachment 3.
okay. Okay. As you know, in the past, our pavement analysis was typically done by staff. We did a windshield survey. Usually it was the streets crew that would provide the most data. We sort of changed that up when Alan Rowley came on board, and he oversaw the windshield survey every year to try to provide a structured list of priorities for paving in the city. But we wanted to do something more technical. We've had a lot of questions and concerns about pavement condition. We've been through some incidents with Scott Drive where we resurfaced and it failed. We had to completely redo Upper Kent, and the question has come about, what exactly is going on with our pavement out there? VDOT uses a system through Fugro, Fugro Roadware, where they have a very high-tech vehicle that uses ARAN. It's called Automatic Road Analyzer. So this van came to the old City Hall, and we got to check it out. It was very cool. It's got lots of little sensors, but it actually takes surface condition analysis, it does base condition analysis, and even does sub-base condition analysis through pressure points on the van itself. So it gives you a more complete picture, not just what you see from the surface, but what the vehicle and all of its high-tech gadgetry can determine about pavement as it drives over it. We entered into a contract in October of 21 with VDOT to use Fugro as a subcontractor. They came out in the springtime, drove the entire city, and gave us the data. Now, it is a lot of data, and it's very difficult to look at. I mean, the spreadsheet kind of blew my mind. I think sometimes I put together big spreadsheets, but it's massive, the amount of data that's collected by this equipment. But they do have a very nice, user-friendly application where you can go in and you can see the pictures of the pavement condition, and you can see the different scores, however you want, whatever you want to pull up as far as the data that was collected for that particular segment. And you can actually drive the city, almost like Google Maps, looking at what the van saw when it was there and how all of the different sensors scored. So what we did was we took all of the pavement condition analysis that Fugro provided. Unfortunately, 41.33% of the city fell into a category that Fugro calls serious. Now, Fugro doesn't use a whole lot of nice terms in their actual analysis categories, and I believe in your package you actually have a copy of the categories. There's not too many good ones in there. They all sort of sound dire. But 41.33% of the city fell into the serious category, and 21.64% of the city fell into the very poor category. So the majority of our city fell into the serious or very poor. What we did was, when we got the data and we had some questions about the data, we went out and did our own windshield survey of some very poor sections and some serious sections, just to see how it looks with the naked eye. Some of it we had to go back, and if we had just gone after that segment, we probably wouldn't have picked that segment, because like Cabell Drive leading to the police station, we had just resurfaced that section, but it scored very poorly because of the way Fugro does their analysis, because we didn't pave the entirety of it. So there is a section before Manassas Drive that's still in very bad shape and has a whole lot of patches in it from Columbia Gas and from our water line repair work, and that section scored so poorly that it brought the entirety of Cabell down. So what we had to do was take the Fugro data and combine it with windshield data to determine what our actual paving priorities were. And on top of that, the Fugro data included a lot of streets like Manassas Drive, which we resurfaced that under a VDOT grant 6-7 years ago, and we applied for another grant that we barely missed out on this year, but we're hoping that we get that grant next go-round, so we wouldn't go ahead and spend normal paving money on something that was resurfaced 6-7 years ago. There's also a lot of streets that fell into the very serious or very, very poor or serious categories that we have other projects planned on, like this drainage study that we presented tonight is already indicating that we're probably going to be doing some infrastructure work on Lower Kent Drive. We're probably going to be doing some infrastructure work on Lambert Drive. So any of those sections where we know we're going to have more infrastructure work, we didn't go ahead and make recommendations because that's always been our policy. If we think we're going to be busting the street up, let's not go ahead and waste money on resurfacing right now. So the end result of all this work and going over the Fugro data and doing the windshield surveys and comparing it against our future infrastructure projects, we're recommending Polk Drive from Cabell to Manassas, Courtney Drive in its entirety, Runyon Court, Crozet Street, and Greenshire Drive, and Hedgeford, a small portion. That's kind of a pretzel-shaped series of roads. We had repaved a portion of it before, but we got numerous complaints about a lower section of Greenshire in front of the playground, and I was blown away myself when we drove down there to do the windshield survey. It's near failure. Had the entire section of Greenshire looked like that, it probably would have scored in the fail category in the Fugro analysis, but the worst part of it is only I'd say a 75, 80 foot long section right in front of the playground there, but is in very poor shape. So we're recommending that one portion of the pretzel, that loop with Greenshire and Hedgeford, be included in this paving round, and then we'll try to fit the other loop in the next paving round. It's not that loop is in spectacular shape, but this is the worst of that area that's out there now, and we feel as though we'll be able to finish up that subdivision in a year or two. So this would represent task order number 6 to Branscombe Paving, our on-call pavement contractor. Their total quote for this work is $339,046.05. But as always, because this is done in weights and measures, we would like to carry a 10% contingency on this project in case they remove more material than they think they're going to remove and have to bring in more repair material than they thought they were going to have to. That would be a $33,904.61 contingency, which would bring the total ask for this to $372,950.66. Now this year, that would normally blow our paving budget of around $250,000. We've been steadily increasing it by 5% every year, but we're still in that $250,000 range. But because of our grantors tax situation and the changes in the Nvta taxation legislation, we did have grantors tax that wasn't needed for other capital streets projects. So we're actually working with a $425,000, almost $426,000 paving budget in the street improvements and resealing line this year. Now, we do have some other projects that we have to set some money aside for, so this is in line, this $372,950 is in line with what we think we can afford to spend right now and not have to worry about accomplishing the rest of our projects in the spring. But that's pretty much the summary. Branscombe task order number 6 with a total not to exceed amount of $372,950.66. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Calvin. I find this data to be very interesting. My takeaway from this is that the city got a lot of detailed data, and it was a good bang for the buck. So this is very exciting. Any comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. I understand why the west side, because it's original and old, but the part by Greenshire and Hedgeford where the playground is, do we know why that's in the situation it's in?
I'm not sure it's ever been resurfaced. I imagine that was completed around 2002, 2003.
So it's 20 years old?
Yeah, the pavement's 20 years old. But really, there was a very bad section if you go down Hedgeford and turn right, there's sort of a dead end there, and that section had been redone previously because it was in total disrepair. And looks like it's pretty much the entirety of that pretzel is in bad shape, but right in front of the playground there, it is in really bad shape. I was kind of blown away how bad it had gotten. But it is 20 years old, has probably never been resurfaced since original construction, but I don't see any indication down there that there's any drainage issues or anything like
Just
that.
age.
So, yeah, just age.
Okay.
And it is at the bottom of the hill, so if you were going to have drainage issues or water sitting under the pavement, that's exactly where it would happen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No follow-up? Oh, okay. Comments or questions? Comment? Okay. Staff recommended motion is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign task order number 6 with Julius Branscombe, Inc. for a total amount not to exceed $372,950.66, which includes a contingency of $33,904.61 as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Calvin. Are you still up for Corner
Yep,
Drive?
still up.
Okay.
All right, so this is very exciting because this was a roadway project that was on the radar the first time I ever applied for revenue sharing money, way back in 2007 or 2008. And we first applied for revenue sharing for a conceptual project for Connor Drive extended to Route 28. We did not finally enter into a revenue sharing agreement with VDOT until August of 2011. And there's been multiple revisions to that funding agreement since, because we originally had this project in our CIP in the early 2000s at $425,000. But as we've tried to accommodate the request for parking and dodge utility poles, and we've learned that we need to completely redo the existing section of Connor, the price has gone up. So right now, the current funding agreement with VDOT has VDOT funding $910,000, $910,534 in revenue sharing. The city will match that exactly, or has been matching that exactly. The funding agreement also, though, has VDOT contributing $177,857 in urban funds, where our match, because of that urban pool, is only $3,630. Now, that does leave, for the total project agreement of a little over $2.7 million, $760,769, which we have contributed to the project through a mixture of PRTC, motor fuels tax, and Nvta local funds. We put this project finally out to bid in July of 2022. Two people came in really neck and neck on their base bids, but with this project, I believe I discussed this with the governing body long ago when we were talking about Connor Drive, and there were alternates in the bid, and those involved what we could actually do with the existing section of Connor Drive. There was an add-alt, as we call it, an addition alternate for simply resurfacing the existing Connor Drive, and then there was an add alternate for actual full-depth reconstruction of Connor Drive. Now, we were waiting to see how the bids came in before we made recommendation, because we were kind of nervous with inflation and the way projects have been coming in across the region that we weren't going to be able to afford these add-alts for the project. But when the bids did come in, we can afford to completely do the full-depth reconstruction of the existing Connor. So our recommendation is to go with A&M, who came in at 1.519, 149.75 with their base bid combined with the alternate. And we would recommend, of course, the 5% contingency on that, and that would come out to $75,957.49. So that would make the total request for this project $1.519, $1,595,107.24. Now, at the end of fiscal year '22, we had $2,093,197.76 left. Now, we have not been carrying over in our financial system, but that money was available. So with this approval, you would then be insinuating that we're going to amend that money back into the FY23 budget. But as you can see, the project cost is covered. There are additional costs above this 1.6 million. There is a Bowman contract that we approved to manage the construction phase services, to provide construction engineering. And so there is additional money, but it does fall within this 2.093 million. So the project is on budget, and we are still keeping enough money, or have enough money left over to try to transfer any additional revenue sharing over to Upper Kent. Remember, that project came in over budget, and we said we need to carry some money from this project to that. That still fits within that original $2,093,000 budget. So it's all good news on this front.
Good news. Thank you, Calvin. Comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
This is very exciting. This has been talked about for a long time. So when do you think this would start?
So if you approve A&M tonight and the contract with A&M tonight, hopefully within the next 3 weeks, we could actually have our pre-construction meeting with them, give them notice to proceed, and let them loose to start work. We're already hearing whispers. There is a water line relocation portion of this project. There was quite a bit of infrastructure work with this project, even relocating force mains for UOSA. So a lot of that ductile iron has a very significant lead time. So there are some things we're going to have to discuss with the contractor when they go to place those orders and they get actual lead times. Alternate materials would be a consideration, but some of it we don't have control over. What UOSA wants in the ground, we can't tell them what they want in the ground. So we'll have to wait and see what the contractor can pull off, what lead times they're quoted by their vendors. But I would hope that if lead times on materials don't become an issue, that this project will be under construction within the next 30 to 45 days, and I'd love to see it completed next summer. So.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Comments? Yes, ma'am.
So every time I've gone down there, where the dead end is over there on Connor Drive, folks use that as a parking lot. What are your plans to give those folks a heads up?
So that's something, we've already had to sort of clear out the parking lot on the other side of the barricades, on the substation side, just to get in there and get the survey work completed and get the bid over with. But yeah, I've seen the same thing. So there's a basketball hoop set up down there.
That's
and
new.
there's lots of cars down there. So we'll have to go ahead and try to figure out from that group of townhouses whose stuff that is and give them notice. I don't know where the contractor's going to start, and we won't know that until the pre-bid conference,
Right.
or the pre-construction conference. Once they tell us an exact date that they think they'll need that stuff moved, then we'll coordinate with the residents there and try to get that stuff out of the way before the contractor needs the area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Comments or questions? No follow-up? Okay. Staff recommended motion is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign a contract with A&M Concrete Corporation for the Connor Drive Extension Project, including the additional alternative to repave the existing portion of Connor Drive for a combined total amount not to exceed $1,595,107.24 as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Calvin.
Thank you.
Yeah. And next, we have Public Safety Starting Salaries, 9F. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the governing body. Tonight, I would like to discuss an issue we're having at the police department. we're facing some challenges in retaining and recruiting officers to the department. Over the past 2 years, we have lost about 16 officers to other agencies in the region, and over the last 3 years, we've lost 23 officers to other agencies. So the primary factors that we can tell by looking into this for the high turnover rate and the challenges that we're seeing in recruitment are due to the rising starting pay in the region. It looks like they've bumped their pay up to the mid-60s, and we're still in the low 50s. The police department currently is authorized 35 officers. However, currently we have 5 vacancies and 3 in the academy, which brings my total down to 27 sworn officers in the department. The high turnover rate is taking a toll on my staff right now. They're mandatory overtime to cover. And it should be noted that, out of the 15 officers we have on patrol, 12 of them only have about a year of experience, slightly over, which is kind of concerning. Obviously, they're going to have to learn and as the years goes on, but there is a cost every time we go to replace our personnel, and it keeps going up because of these salaries and benefits in the region. And, we're all competing from the same pool of officers, so obviously the bigger jurisdictions and the neighboring jurisdictions are able to increase their pay. So the police department starting pay right now is $52,749, which over the years, with the city manager's approval, we've increased it slightly, so we didn't have like a pay compression, by raising it too high where people will be coming in making more than our current officers. The region, doing a study ourselves, we kind of discovered that the region starting pay now is about $63,739. And we included the salary, or the agencies with their starting pay down there, what they are. So the highest right now is actually state police at almost $66,000 that they're starting officers in Northern Virginia. The increase in the region has made it very difficult for us to recruit and to retain our officers. And like I said, the high turnover rate is really impacting the services we provide to our city residents. Such as non-emergency, crime prevention efforts, traffic management duties. I'm at minimal staffing most of the days, and nights, because people, sick, have to be off or training. So we're trying to manage that. I had to, I hate to say this, but I had to pull the school resource office out to cover the streets now. Now they're during the day going into schools, listening to the radio, coming out, answering calls, going back, which is not what I wanted to do. I've talked to the superintendent, she understands, and Mr. Palco, but I want to get to that point where they're there the whole time. Below is a breakdown, like if you look at Vienna, they're at 63, 245, Leesburg's like 63, your Falls Church is at 63,705, Dumfries starts at 65, Nova's not in here, one of our guys just left, he's got barely 2 years on and they paid him 70 to come over there. So the department is requesting a salary adjustment for all public safety personnel. We included the fire department on this, utilizing the photo enforcement program funds. This adjustment will keep us in line with the region and allow us to retain our staff and recruit qualified officers. For the police department, we're requesting an $11,000 increase in our starting pay and across the board, with the exception of myself and the deputy chief. This will avoid a pay compression, and we won't be hiring officers that have been here and have stayed with us that'll make more than the new officers, and keeping us current in the market. And with this also for the fire department, it would reduce their remaining 25% gap, and they would be at the area average, is my understanding, with this increase. To implement this, we would need about $560,812. As you can see in the table below, from the photo enforcement program. We project that we'll have approximately about $610,000 available based on our collection rate, and which will not affect that's actually taking into consideration the school infrastructure safety enhancement we're about to present, and also the program, and also the existing safety stipend program that was approved back in July.
Okay. Are you done, Chief?
Yes,
I didn't want to interrupt you. Thank you very much, Chief. I think this is something that is extremely important. I think it's something that we have a responsibility to do. We have the funding, and I think it needs to be done. We pride ourselves on being a family-oriented, safe, welcoming community, and if we can't keep our community safe, not much else matters. So that's my 2 cents worth. Any comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
My question's for the city manager. If we didn't have any red light income or speed camera income, would this merge into your existing budget ideas to close the gap next year? So not this year, but say a year from now, would this merge into your current budget?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So if we're using this money to close the gaps, then it helps. The issue with the gap closing is exactly what happened this year, where we increased, but guess what happened with the rest of the region?
Yeah.
They dramatically increased pay for officers. The state police one was a big shocker, too. They jumped very high. So right now, for police and teachers, there's just less of a labor pool for both. And so jurisdictions are competing with each other to try to pool for both. So our schools are struggling, our police department's struggling right now with recruiting, and for both teachers and officers, you want to have some experience built in, especially for officers out in the streets. You want to have more experience with supervisors and be able to hire experienced officers and mix them with young employees. So we want to do this, but you're absolutely right. It helps with the current plan, but the plan is always static, and unfortunately, I've always reiterated that we're competing in a marketplace, and in this marketplace right now, the rest of the jurisdictions are increasing their pay. So even though we're doing these great pay increases now, the last couple of years, everyone else is doing the same thing, unfortunately. And so it's an uphill battle until we radically change our economy to be able to keep up with what the other jurisdictions are doing. But this will definitely help if hopefully things remain static. Then we could then have additional funding available to help the other departments maybe catch up a little bit quicker as well with their FY23 gaps, which hopefully remain the same for FY24, but I don't think they will. I think the rest of the region is going to keep, even during mid-year, they'll do these pay increases as well, and that's what's changing everything. But and we've seen it. It's not just, again, police and teachers. We talked about public works as well before. Last winter time, we talked about the issues with recruitment of crew workers. We're continuing to struggle with that as well. So it is across the board, but it's alarming what's been happening with police and, from what I understand, teachers as well over the last few months.
Yeah. Do you have a follow-up?
No, that's all, thank you.
Councilmember Moore, you looked like you had a question.
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Yes,
Very
ma'am.
clear.
No, I have a question. First, Chief, you know that I duly respect the police department, and I have great fondness for the police department, and I always just tell you guys, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. My second question, well, this is actually my first question, it was a statement. What are the other jurisdictions doing in addition to salaries to attract staff? What type of benefits and other incentives are they adding?
The only thing that they're doing that we're not doing is a bonus, which I'm not going to give a bonus to somebody to come work here. I mean, DC is giving...
A signing bonus, right?
Signing bonus, signing bonus. Like, DC is given a $10,000 prior to go to the academy. When they graduate the academy, they get another $10,000. I believe Fairfax, it's like $6,000 signing bonus. I haven't been able to talk to Prince William to see what they're offering inside the bonuses. I don't think Manassas is, but like Leesburg, Herndon, I think all those agencies those kind of incentives are offered.
Okay, like you're a freelance quarterback or something.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Follow-up? No. Okay. Any other? Yes.
Thank you, Chief. Question about the SRO. I thought we received a grant for that position. Do we lose that grant now if you pull that position off?
I'd have to look into it further. I'm hoping that we won't, because I still have them reporting there during the week, and when he's off, I'm having another officer kind of go there during the day, during lunch period and stuff, so I'm hoping that it doesn't but I'm hoping I can hire some people quickly. I mean, recently we had 5 certified officers apply with our agency. When they saw the starting pay, they were in the mid-60s, upper 60s. They didn't want to take the pay cut to come to work for us. And they all, said, hey, quit me from the process.
But do they know about the other incentives we offer, like the take-home cars?
Yes, I brought that up, and I brought up the stipends that were approved back in July, and it wouldn't even touch what they're making. I thought the car would be a selling factor for them, but they said that they couldn't afford with pricing and the inflation. They said they couldn't afford to take a pay cut at this point.
I have a follow-up. Sorry, go ahead. Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I got probably 2 or 3 more comments. I guess we made over $1 million on the speed camera tickets, and then over $500,000 on the red light.
I don't have.
Or is it total 1.6?
Yeah, so we didn't do a full year's program yet. So we started the speeding camera back in November. That ended at end of May, early June when school closes. So it's only, the speeding camera is only active during school, when the school's open. And then the red light camera began, I believe, in April. So we only had a few months. So what we had to do is extrapolate on a 12 and 9-month basis what the annual revenues from a fiscal year standpoint would be, and that's how we came up with those numbers. There's still a significant amount available from 22 that hasn't been touched, so even if there's a decrease for whatever reason in 23, we can kind of backfill that with the 22 amount, but we don't see a slowdown yet in any revenues from these 2 items.
Thank you. I guess, the raises, the turnover, that's important, right? We need to address it. And, my only concern is that using the revenue from these tickets to give these pay raises to staff, I kind of feel like that's kind of like a slap in the face to the residents. Some of this, the fines that we do get from these tickets could be used for other public safety infrastructure, pedestrian crosswalks, sidewalks, traffic lights, street lights. But once we use these fines that we're collecting from our residents and then turning it over as a pay raise, to me, morally, that does not sit with me. Now, with that said, I see these revenues could be used towards infrastructure, buying cars, equipment, right? That should free up money in the general fund, right? So I'm thinking we should flip-flop this and kind of use the general fund to give these raises to our police officers and fires, except instead of taking it from the fines.
Yeah, that could be an option, because I looked at the CIP right now based off your earlier email, and if we use this money to help fund police and fire capital items, you could come up with equivalent money, and then to your point, you free up the general fund operating budget to do the pay raises. So that's another option to keep this money away from salaries and more oriented towards capital equipment and infrastructure. If that's the approach the governing body wants to take, it is feasible.
Right. That's just my opinion. I don't know. I can't speak for everybody else, but I think that's kind of the approach I was kind of leaning towards. But by all means, I mean, I think also even freezing up positions in your department. You have how many frozen positions?
Currently, we have 1 frozen position, is our animal control position.
I see. And that's included in the 5 vacancy or not?
No.
Okay, so it's basically 6.
Yes, sir.
If you count that in. No, that was my only comment, is just, using the funds vice versa, basically.
I understand, sir. I looked at my budget. I tried to see where I can save some money to do at least half or something. I couldn't find the funds. I see the amount of money in this rep that we're getting from these cameras. I thought that was an avenue that I brought to Mr. Palco's attention to see if we can use that to try to slow this down, because I got 5 vacancies, and if I lose those 5 that are looking at other agencies, I'm going to have to pull my investigation unit back on the street, and maybe command staff's going to have to start working the street too.
Yeah, and I think like I told the last meeting, I think your department has the highest turnover in all departments,
yes,
right? And we need to address this. But, this also comes towards our budget season, right? How many pay raises or how much pay raise should we give during this, every year? So, that was my only comment, is just the fines used here. I see the trend, the thought process behind it, but to me, I think, I just like to see it reversed. for the uses, especially from fines that we're collecting from our residents.
Would that create a delay in implementing?
No, because it would be a budget adjustment where we would have now, essentially that revenue would be increased or used to pay for an increase from a general fund contribution to the CIP to cover these specific projects, and we can label it as such in the budget. So it's just going to be an FY23 amendment, but that would not stop the implementation of this program.
Wherever the funding's going to come from, it's important that we do this. Yeah, okay.
I have a quick follow-up question. I know at one time, we were one of the few jurisdictions that had a take-home card. That was one of our big advantages. By my understanding now, many other jurisdictions are offering that same benefit.
Yes, ma'am.
So we can't really dangle that in front of them anymore.
Herndon is doing it. They've just advertised take home. Prince William is trying to do the same thing, and they even called us to ask how we did it. And some of the other jurisdictions already have take homes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Once people start following the rules and not breaking the rules and not getting tickets, how would that affect the races and the new officers that we hire?
Yeah, it would decrease the available funding, so that's the risk here with this program, but we haven't seen evidence yet of that. Even the parking tickets, we've seen a slowdown in the rise, but we're still seeing a rise. Does that make sense? I think decals is the one that could be flattening and actually going down, but the revenues have been going up, and they may be closer to flat this year, and there's still ongoing collections issues, but there's still more than what we budgeted historically for parking tickets, and that's what we're seeing so far with this red light camera and speeding cameras, that it's not slowing down, it's just going up, and you may get to a point where it plateaus maybe, but I'm not sure we're going to see that decrease going forward, just because of the locations where they're at. It's not just hitting residents, it's people that are crossing through our city that may not be familiar with the camera being there, especially in the industrial sector for the speeding, and then even the red light on 28, you're not going to be necessarily familiar that that's there.
So just to make it clear, we're not collecting this revenue just from residents. It comes from everybody that comes through.
I would say the majority are probably non-residents.
Okay.
Right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and then your projection is that it's not going to slow down at least within a year or two?
I don't think within the next year or two we should see a slowdown.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And keep in mind, people are getting fined because they're breaking the law.
Exactly.
That's right.
I mean, you want to talk about morals, that in itself is, that breaking the law is immoral.
I personally think that I have no problem taking it out of photo enforcement program because that's designated for public safety. And this is for public safety. It's for the benefit of public safety. So, any other comments or questions? Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to use revenues from the photo enforcement program to help fund a salary and benefits adjustment for public safety personnel for an amount not to exceed $560,812.11.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I'm going to do one abstention. Abstain.
Abstain, one abstention. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Okay, moving on to 9G, which is banquet hall floor replacement.
Good evening again. All right, I'm here now to talk about the banquet hall marmoleum flooring. It has reached its end of life. It has numerous scratches, stains, and cracks. Additionally, it has developed a permanent haze on the finish that gives it the appearance of dust or dirt. And in order to remain a popular rentable space, the flooring needs to be replaced. We've looked into many different flooring options. Our recommendation is to go with a polished concrete flooring in there. We solicited bids from 3 different vendors. One was East Coast Decorative Concrete, Collins Concrete Coatings, and Skyline Concrete Coatings. East Coast came in at $31,565. Collins came in at $52,500, and Skyline still hasn't submitted their quote, so they weren't able to meet the deadline. We recently worked with East Coast Decorative Concrete on the banquet or the indoor pool deck. They did a wonderful job. We're easy to work with, good communication. So, and the fact that theirs comes in within budget, we are recommending to go with East Coast Decorative Concrete. In addition to the $31,565 that they quoted for the work, we are asking for an additional 10%, so $3,156.50 to cover any joint and cracks that need to be filled once they get under the marmoleum. I think they're quoting about $4.25 per linear foot, so that should more than cover it. And then again, it'll come well under the $40,000 that was budgeted on the CIP. There still may be some additional work that'll need to get done once the flooring is installed, as we are going to have to pull out the baseboards around the entire floor. So there might be some trim work and painting that'll need to get done that'll come out the rest of the $40,000, but that shouldn't be too terrible, and a lot of that can probably be handled in-house.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a picture of what it would look like?
I don't. It will be very similar in design as far as having the border around it, and the color scheme will be very similar. We haven't picked the colors yet, to be honest, but I want to keep it all in the same color, the neutral color scheme, so that we don't have to repaint the walls, and because the new furniture, it all kind of matches, but it will have that, border ring around it.
And the concrete will have that glossy?
Yes.
Type of thing?
Yes.
Right.
Comments or questions? No? Okay. Well, the staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to negotiate, approve, and sign an agreement with East Coast Decorative Concrete, LLC, to install a new polished concrete floor for the community center banquet hall for an amount not to exceed $34,721.50 as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, city manager's report.
I think there's public comment.
Yeah, public comment. Oh, wait, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Public comment time. Is there anyone signed up to make public comment? Okay. Is there anyone who is not signed up but who would still like to make public comment? Seeing no one and hearing no one, we will move on to city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor Rochelle and Vice Mayor Mensing, and the rest of the governing body. 3 items before I get to the FTE analysis, a couple items. So just one for clarification on the donation request before to church groups for the furniture. Dean was looking into that, and Dean, if you're on, if you can just clarify that we're not able to do that per state law. So Dean, can you just clarify that?
Yeah, we're not able to do it. Unfortunately, Section 15.2-953 of the Code of Virginia that does allow us to donate to charitable institutions does carve it out, saying that we cannot donate public property to sectarian societies or churches.
But what about nonprofits?
So unfortunately, nonprofits, yeah, as long as they provide a service to our residents.
Okay.
So they can be either in the city or provide a service to our residents and located outside the city, but they cannot be controlled by a religious organization, basically.
Okay. So we can, what's that?
Can they be sold?
Oh, yeah, that's what, when we listed as surplus, then we put it up for auction, and that's how we sell it. But for nonprofits, we can certainly check with Randy Knights, our DSS director, for all the different nonprofits working in our city and see if any of them would need it.
Okay.
Good.
When Dean speaks, I was wondering if Kelly could hold the microphone over to the phone, that the electronics from the phone, and it just goes straight up, and I can't hear what he's saying at all. Thank you.
Okay. Hopefully that's better. Dean, can you test? Can you say something, Dean?
I couldn't hear what the mayor said. Did she ask a question of me?
No, she was saying that she wasn't able to hear you clearly, but we moved the mic closer to the phone. I think that worked. Is that right, Mayor Rochelle, that last time that Dean spoke?
Can you hear me better now?
That's no better.
It's no better.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. All right.
You can
I mean, I'm speaking fairly loudly here, so...
Okay. All right. The next item has to do with, I believe it was last meeting, we talked about the loud mufflers and wanted to get consensus if you all wanted to change the ordinance to add Route 28 and the industrial center for enforcement. And if you guys say yes, then we would have to amend the ordinance and bring that back to you all for consideration, so it would have to be advertised and brought back to you all. So just wanted to see if that was something.
Can I chime in real quick for that? I mean, are you looking at just carving out sections of the city to apply this? Or are you going to make it apply throughout the entire city?
That's what I'm looking for consensus. Do they want to have this apply across the city or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just urge you just to do it across the city, because already it's prohibited throughout the city. And if we pull anyone over anywhere in the city for this, and they happen to be in an area where we're not, we don't have a code section that applies, the money's going to the state, not to us. So it's not really doing any good to not have the entire city covered.
Entire city.
Yeah, it's just easier that way.
Yeah.
I think it's important. It will provide consistency of enforcement.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, moving on now then, the FT analysis, just as a reminder, and I wish Vice Mayor Banks was still here because he was the one that asked this question during the budget deliberations, so I'm sorry to him that I didn't get this in time, but again, with his encouragement, I'm getting this information to you all. So during the FY23 budget deliberations, the Commissioner of Revenue was here to talk about her request for additional staffing support, and you guys were asking her kind of what the requirements were, why she needed the additional staffing, and then one of the questions that came up, well, how does her staffing levels compare to the rest of the region? And then the follow-up was, well, how does each department thereafter also stack up to the rest of the region in terms of FTEs? So that was asked during the budget season, and he tasked me to come back with that FTE comparisons, and that's what this presentation tonight is going to do. We're going to look at our sister cities, and you'll see that on the next slide who they are, and see how we stack up with them. And this is going to be very similar now to like the pay gap coverage analysis that we did before. So we started with pay. We said, here's how far behind we are with pay. We came up with a strategy for addressing that. Now I'm just providing you the information for the FTE analysis. You're going to see there's no way we're going to match the other jurisdictions. It's just not going to happen unless something dramatically changes in the city. But that's what this analysis is going to show. So there's some caveats to this. So you'll see that it's not entirely an apples to apples an apples to apples comparison. I had to extract some of the data to kind of make it make sense, but you can see from an outsourcing standpoint, Fairfax City and Falls Church, they do outsource DSS services to Fairfax County. So what I did for that one is I looked at the entire Fairfax County FTE count, and I allocated the share based off population. So Fairfax City was allocated based off their population share, same thing with Falls Church. Fairfax City contracts out city attorney services, but the budgets are equivalent, right? So there's not really, we're not spending more on total city attorney budget than we are with them. Falls Church outsources fire and rescue services to Arlington. So again, I had to do the same kind of math where I looked at the combined Arlington and Falls Church populations, and also the total FTEs for that, and then provided the same share of allocation. And then lastly, Manassas, Fairfax, and Fredericksburg, they outsource library services to counties. We do outsource library services as well, but we do that to the private sector. But nevertheless, we included kind of FTE numbers for the county shares for those jurisdictions, and then for our private sector FTEs to just do an apples to apples comparison. And again, this wasn't just me doing the analysis. Again, Ms. Kelly Evans helped me out with the research and analysis here as well, so just want to give a shout out to her for helping out here. Other services as well that we don't do. So you'll see in this analysis that I show a comparison of us to the other jurisdictions with these other services included in the FTE counts, and then without those other services included, just to do a more apples to apples. So, for example, Fredericksburg, they manage their own courts. So they have court employees, they have a Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, and they also do their own bus service as well. So that creates additional FTEs for services that we don't provide directly as a city. So you can factor those out if you'd like to just do a more apples to apples on services provided, how we stack up, and I do this in the analysis as well. Manassas manages an airport and electrical utility. That's something we don't do. And then Falls Church and Fairfax City, they have a TV station programming office where they each have 2 FTEs to manage that. And then lastly, Fairfax City also, like Fredericksburg, has their own bus service. So again, you can either include those FTEs to see kind of a total city spending, how a total city, what their total FTEs level are, or if you want to just do more of an apples and apples and say, well, with the services that we provided as a city, how do we stack up with those services from the other cities? So those are the caveats to this analysis. Does that make sense? Okay. So as a total city, you can see I list there at the top row the different jurisdictions and the total FTE counts for those jurisdictions. So again, there's going to be higher FTE counts in other jurisdictions. Well, it makes sense because some of them are bigger than us, right? So of course they're going to have more. But like for example, Falls Church, they're smaller than us, yet they have a lot more FTEs than we do as a total, right? But I also want to factor that in, taking population into account, because like I said, of course, larger jurisdictions are going to have more FTEs. That makes sense. But how many FTEs support each resident, right? So that's the ratio here. Each FTE for the city supports 90.68 FTEs, okay? And then you can see for the other jurisdictions how that stacks up when you include those other services that we don't provide, and then when you don't include. So that's the row right here. If you want to just do more of an apples to apples and say, hey, we're going to ignore those other services that they're taxing their residents for to provide, even though, again, they're providing these additional services. If you want to just look at that without those others, you can see we're still much more productive and efficient from an FTE perspective than any other of our sister cities by a large amount. And that's what that ratio is looking at. Does that make sense what that ratio is covering? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the next table says, well, how many more residents are we serving compared to the other jurisdictions, right? So on average, we're serving about, with the other categories included, about 1.56 more residents on average than the other jurisdictions, or without those others, if you want to just compare service to service, about 1.43. So what that means is, if we were to kind of equate how many employees we would need to kind of match their productivity and efficiency levels, we would either need 268.97, so 269 really, if you don't want to include the others, right? If you just want to match service per service, or 292 if you just want to say, hey, equivalent FTEs regardless of services provided. That's what that number is saying. So when you look at that and you subtract that from our current FTEs, you'll see what the FTE gap is as a city overall, that if we were to be equivalent in terms of the average of the other sister cities in terms of FTE levels, we would need either between 81 FTEs and 104 additional FTEs from our city perspective. Remember I said before, that's not happening right now. That's a lot of FTEs to increase. But again, this just reinforces as you engage with residents and they say that we're too bloated or no, just point to this. This shows how much more efficient we are than other jurisdictions. Okay. So the next few slides I'm going to go over by department for those that have gaps. The rest of the departments that aren't here, they're equivalent. So there's, if you want to look at that, there's no real adjustments. If you want to just look at it as apples to apples, there's no real adjustments needed for those. So I'm only going to show you those that have gaps. So the Commissioner of Revenue, that was asked at the budget, and they do have a gap of 1.27. So again, you can see the other jurisdictions up here, how many people they have, look at their populations, come up with the ratio of how many residents each Commissioner of Revenue employee is serving in our city compared to the other jurisdictions, and that's where you come up with this gap. So again, Manassas here is going to be more efficient than we are when it comes to the Commissioner of Revenue Services, but when you look at the average of the sister cities, right, this is what you come up with. And again, what you're going to find with a lot of these, there's a base level of service requirements, and that's why, again, most of the time, larger jurisdictions, when you do kind of an equal level of productivity, they can actually have less because they have larger economies of scales, right? We talk about this all the time with kind of DSS, where you can where larger jurisdictions, because they have so much more residents, right? They can specialize and they can spread that overhead across that larger pool of residents, so you can have a base level service. So probably the best example would be like human resources, right? Where you have to do recruitment and retention, you have to do payroll, you have to do benefits, right? Those are kind of base level. And so as you add additional employees, right, you may need additional employees to do each of those things, but you may not. There's a certain threshold that would require you to need more, and others that you don't require to need more. So that's why I think you'll see Manassas, in some instances, is going to be more efficient than us because they're taking advantage of their economies of scale, right, where they have those base level positions funded, and then you don't need any additional above that unless you got a little bit bigger. Okay?
This chart here, so I can understand it.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that we need to hire 5 positions more, 5 people in our commission on revenue.
We have 4.
Yes.
We would need to have 5.27, so that's a gap of 1.27. So we would need 1 more FTE. Sorry about that, I should have clarified that. So that's why I highlighted this yellow. This is the FTE gap for the Commissioner of Revenue. We already have it in the future budget to fill this tax auditor position. That's the recommendation that we have as staff for what the next position should be, because they're the ones who are actually going to be looking at the tax records of businesses to make sure that they're in compliance with what they should be paying. Because I think you're going to find that there's a lot of missing money that the city should be getting from a tax perspective. Okay? Does that make sense now, that slide?
Thank you for that question.
Sorry about that. Are there any questions about this table?
Now it makes sense.
Okay, because all the rest of the tables are going to look exactly like this. They're going to show what the gap is, how many more FTEs you would need to be equivalent with the average. Okay? And some of these are going to be a shocker. HR and finance makes a lot of sense. I show them together because right now they were sharing a half FTE, and I think we need to move away from that model and just have an FTE for each. So flip that 0.5, combine it, just have that focus on one of the departments and then add the other for the other department, because these are the big gaps that we have. Each of them is roughly, when you combine the two, we're short 1 FTE, but that makes sense because we have one supporting both. So if you kind of split that person up, right, that's what's going to create that half FTE gap. You combine them and move them to one department, and then you add another department, you'll then be equivalent. And what we're really struggling in right now, from an HR perspective, is benefits management, right? Retirement, health insurance, all those aspects. And where we're struggling with in finance is just the volume of accounts payable transaction, where we only have one person to manage all accounts payables for the city, right? And it's a significant burden on that one employee. So that, again, this one, just for full transparency, we are looking at potentials for outsourcing for contract services as well, so bear with us there. Hopefully we can bring some options for that as well to reduce the need for additional FTEs and actually use private sector to help us out for that. And so each of these slides, I kind of put what we're recommending, right? If we were to, it doesn't mean we're going to do this. I'm just showing you if we were going to fund this, what we would recommend as staff about how to fill this. So this is the IT department. You can see, again, they have 4.5 FTEs. You can see what the other jurisdictions have. Again, Falls Church, much smaller than us, they have 9.5, right? So even though the IT department doesn't serve residents, right, they serve the city, I still use the same ratio. So technically each IT employee services an infrastructure that can support 3,778 residents compared to the other jurisdictions. Again, we're even more efficient than Manassas, who has a much greater economies of scale than we do. So you can see those 3 FTE gap. What we recommend, really network engineering, that's one area where we really need support, GIS, and then additional help desk as well. This is a big shocker. So look at this number. 43.
Wow.
There's a reason, again, why our residents complain about our infrastructure, our code enforcement, our zoning, and again, general services. This is kind of overhead that supports the city-wide with our facilities management, our procurement, our logistics, supply chain management. There's a reason why you can say that maybe others can be doing better than us, because we have underfunded community development department significantly since the Great Recession. Remember, they were the ones that took a 40% reduction during the Great Recession, and they never recovered. This number was shocking to me. I knew there was always a gap with community development. I never knew it was this big until I dove into the numbers by department. So again, you look at Falls Church. Much smaller than this, how many FTEs they have to provide all those services that are listed here. So recommended is really everything. We need more crew workers, we need more code enforcement, we need more zoning, we need more building inspectors, we need more general services employees to help with the management of overhead.
Talked about this as far as hiring seasonal employees to help out with this particularly with
Yeah.
snow and leaf work and things of that nature. I hope we are able to implement that at some point.
Yeah.
But it's cheaper than hiring a full-time employee. If we can hire a bunch of part-time employees, it's seasonal.
Absolutely. We didn't, and this is only a full.
Parks and Rec does.
Yeah, this is only a full-time equivalent analysis. It does miss some of the part-time, like seasonal employees. That was not part of this analysis. Does that make sense? So the number could be even bigger for these, and just like for our Parks and Rec as well, we have a lot of seasonal employees. Those were all factored out of this analysis for the other jurisdictions and for us. Okay? So that's a big one. That's the biggest gap that we have as a city right now is the Community Development Department. So again, please, as you engage with residents, just help them understand why, again, maybe we may not be as I think our guys do a great job with the amount of resources, the size of our city, the population we have, the amount of old infrastructure. It's not just, again, these people have more people to do this work, and they have a better infrastructure. We have less and a worse infrastructure. So our guys do an incredible job compared to everyone else. Police is the second biggest gap. We talked about that tonight. So, and that's assuming we're fully staffed, which we're not. You heard that tonight. Right, we have significant shortages right now, but even if we were fully staffed, we'd still be lower than the average by about 15.73 FTEs. So what this is saying is that each officer is able to secure 358 residents in our city compared to the other numbers. Again, that's the highest in the region. So one officer has a greater responsibility in our city than in the others. And you always want to have good ratios for security purposes, right? So again, recommended if we were to get more, we need more officers, of course, we need more detectives, the crime analysts we've talked about, the training officer, the evidence management. These are all the things that you see on a yearly basis from Chief Fugro from a budget perspective, why he's presenting that. It makes sense because these other jurisdictions have all that and we don't. And the fact that we're still able to remain, to retain our credentials that we do with the state, despite that, is pretty impressive from the police department. Fire department's another one, and this one's a little bit more complicated. There's two tables. I'm explaining why there's two tables here, right? But you can see the gap from right now. Falls Church is the biggest kind of variation here because, again, they outsource to Arlington. So they have an economies of scale by outsourcing to Arlington. So if you outsource, theoretically, you have less, you're more efficient in terms of you need less employees to service you because you're part of a much larger entity. But you really have to question kind of dedication and service level. Our fire employees, our EMS employees take extra care with our residents, right? That's something that Falls Church doesn't have, and talking to Chief Sobers, it's something that they talk about. Do they want to go internal with the fire department? We came up with a very conservative estimate of what they would do if they did go internal, and that's what this number is, right? This 48 was Chief Soper and I saying, well, if they did create their own fire department, they separated from Arlington, what's a very conservative number? Because you can see the baseline is really around 60 for you to be able to fully manage a fire, remember the fire response requirements that Chief Soper went over with you all a few months ago, where he said, here's what you need to have for a basic fire of a single-family home, here's what you need for a townhome, here's what you need for a condo or apartment, etc. That's why you can see the others, even though Fairfax City is not that much bigger than us, look how many FTEs they have. But if you want to ignore that and say, no, Falls Church gets economies of scale, right? That's why they're doing this. They have 22 FTEs. We're still short 9.5 for our fire department. And again, that's the recommendation would be the deputy fire marshal for inspections for safety, and then staffing the ladder truck, which we're unable to do right now.
I got a question.
Yes.
So with that, does the FTE gap also take into account for moving away from the Kelly days and going for like one 24-hour shift and then 3 days off? I think that's what it is. It's 1 day, 3 days off, and then you're back on again?
We're not accounting, we're just saying total FTEs. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. We're not accounting for how they do shifts. Yeah. Okay. All right, so next is Parks and Rec and Library, which again, we combined, so we looked at the Parks and Rec numbers and the libraries across the jurisdictions, and again, you can see, well, actually, I want to just go back again and show you kind of how efficient our fire department is right now and how many residents they can service per fire. And then the same thing with Parks and Rec, again, they're the best. The only one you can say that's more productive than them is going to be Fairfax City. But other than that, our Parks and Rec and Library is going to be much more productive than the other jurisdictions in terms of FTE counts. You can see the gap with our Parks and Rec department and library about 5 FTEs. So we have some items on the future budgets, like the downtown events manager. We've talked about the parks, the additional need for parks supervisors as well that we added since we added Blooms Park, which is a large portfolio, plus the downtown area, which Parks and Rec is helping to manage. Custodians, they're a quasi-small business, so they really do need that extra support from a financial management perspective, because they deal with customers and a lot more volume of transactions than any other department does. So they always need that additional support as well to make sure they're accounting for everything properly. And they do a lot of work with the finance department, and the finance department ends up having to help them out a lot on their day-to-day financial management, taking away from overall financial management of the city, if that makes sense. So that's our Parks and Rec department, and I listed here that our new downtown library, 6 FTEs is what we manage that with, which is a pretty good deal. And then I have DSS and Community Services on one slide, because they're very related departments. You can see DSS, we're behind about 1.52, but again, Fairfax and Falls Church kind of skew those numbers down because they outsource to Fairfax County, and Fairfax County has a large economies of scale. And again, you have to question, compare the quality of service of those employees in our city who are part of the community, right, who want to service our residents from a benefit standpoint and an investigation standpoint as well, and their dedication compared to when you outsource, right? But nevertheless, I'm showing that even with the outsourcing, we're still more productive than the other jurisdictions. And then community services, this was a shock. I knew that they had some services when I proposed this during ARPA, and I did look at Fairfax City and Falls Church as a model. But when I really dove into Falls Church, I didn't realize how much more they actually do with community services. And as a reminder, this is economic development. This is housing. They do a lot with housing, public health and mental health services as well. This is what the other jurisdictions are doing from a community services standpoint. So we're not that far off. Again, you can see Manassas is the most productive in that, but we're not that we're above everybody else in terms of productivity. So again, we're not recommending, of course, that we fill these, and we're not recommending we fill these tomorrow, because that's impossible. You saw how big the gap is, but this is just another source of data that we have as we evaluate city productivity and efficiency. What we're able to accomplish, because even though we're more productive and efficient, you have to talk about capabilities and capacity. If you just don't have the resources, you can't do certain things in the amount of volume and time that people would want, and this is an explanation for that. Okay, so that's I think this is a valuable exercise just to really see, because I've always done my analysis before. I did a snapshot during the retreat, and when new council members come on, I always brief them that, where I looked at, hey, how does our internal FTEs stack up from pre-Great Recession to post? And then I just had one chart where I showed this overall productivity ratio. This is updated, and it hasn't gotten better over the last few years. Even though we have been adding FTEs, the other jurisdictions continue to add as well, just like for the pay. They're outpacing us with pay as well. So, we've been, I think, able to stay now a little bit closer than in previous years. We're able to make some adjustments to get closer, but we're still far off, and you can see, especially with the Community Development Department, we're significantly behind the other jurisdictions when it comes to all those different services that our Community Development Department provides. So, any questions with that?
We certainly see where our focus needs to be. Questions, comments?
How do we make it happen?
Economic development. That's the best way, and some of these larger businesses that we're talking about, I think, are the best way to do it.
Questions?
Yeah.
No? Thank you.
Though I do have some questions, I have some questions for the city manager, independent of that. I figure now is a good time as any to ask these. So what I've done, I've gotten some calls I've gathered all the different calls that I've gotten and emails the past month. And some of the residents have come with me with problems, and they actually bring me solutions. So I told them I'd pass them on in this meeting versus doing it through an email.
Do you mind if I sit down and type?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Or do you want my little piece of paper when we're done? Okay. So the first one was about code enforcement post-trash days. I had 2 residents within 12 hours contact me about mattresses left out, and one of the residents asked me, can code enforcement go around on Thursdays and just drive around and take a look? Because it's not just the big items like In this case, it was a total of, I think, about five or seven different mattresses left out, but other things. And can the code enforcement just go on Thursday, just make that as a normal routine thing?
Yeah.
Because I got this call on Thursday night and again on Friday morning.
Yeah. Again, we do that. We cite residents, right? We tell them they need to coordinate for bulk trash pickup. Even when we're going to be able to ticket them, that doesn't resolve the issue. If it's on right-of-way, then our public works can have it removed if that's something we want to do, and sometimes we do that, but we try to get the residents to be responsible. But on every Thursday and Friday, our code enforcement is driving around, and they are citing people for trash being left out in bulk items as well. They're notifying, and they're trying to connect them with Laura from Public Works to contact Patriot to have bulk pickup. So it is something we do.
Okay, because this one resident reached out to me and said that they were thoroughly embarrassed that we're having a family member coming in for the first time, and they are proud of the city, but when they drove around and they saw that, and they knew the family member coming from overseas would see that, it just kind of knocked the wind out of them, and they felt extremely embarrassed. And so if folks are continually do this, maybe we can use the board, the variable boards, and put signs up again, like we did, I think it was last year, about trash collection. I've been hearing again about cars in the yards again, and they asked if code enforcement could come out on nights and weekends, because that's really when it's happening.
Yeah, they do. Now that we have the second person, they've started their shifts. When was it, Calvin, that we started? The third week of July, or?
No, this was their third week of...
Oh, this is their third week of doing evenings and weekend patrols as well.
Okay, because they reached back out to me, they're starting to see some, the same houses with that cars in the yard, especially on Manassas Drive, and it primarily happens on nights and weekends, and they're just getting frustrated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those cars in yards and some of the property that's unkept, those are the majority of cases that we end up taking to court. We have some other cases coming up in October as well that we'll be going back to court with.
Okay. This is just kind of a heads up. One resident reached out and said they're starting to see an uptick in cars without city stickers, especially in Colburn, so that's just a heads up.
Okay.
Another resident texted me last week because there was a large RV parked on the corner of Meeker and Lower Kent, told an individual to call the non-emergency number, and they did. But that just kind of feeds into the need for the signs. And I know we're still in the process of trying to get the the commercial signs. I mean, you can't park commercial cars, but I'm just letting you know that.
Yeah. And Chief, have we hired the parking enforcement person? Have they cleared?
Not yet, sir.
Okay, all right. So we still don't have a parking enforcement person. We only have one parking enforcement officer. We lost that person. We're in the process of trying to bring someone else in. So I think you're going to see a little bit more infractions, unfortunately, right now. Yeah. And again, we don't have enough officers to shift to parking enforcement. They got to be patrolling the street.
Yeah. And so the other one I've been hearing now is about driveways, and is gravel allowable format for driveways? And this you'll probably have to look into and get back to me. And one of the questions I got is, if the people are dropping a load of gravel on the grass to make a driveway, do they have to get the approval? I think it's like $30, and are they?
That's the second part. I think a lot of people don't, but they have to get a permit, right, Calvin, for any driveway work. So, but we do find people starting to work without getting a permit, and then we cite them for that as well. And that's, is that a zoning violation or building code? Zoning, okay. All right. So zoning,
That's just for dropping gravel?
yeah, if you're going to be,
And the other question was, how's gravel considered, how's that allowable? Because from my understanding of the code, it says it has to be some sort of stable, what's the word I'm looking for?
Structure?
Yeah. So like I said, you probably have to look into it and get back.
okay, we'll look into it and we'll get back to you.
I would think we'd want permeable driveways so that the water, these heavy rains, that it would soak down and not just run off into the sidewalks.
Yeah, we'll have to look at it, but you're right in terms of permeable versus impermeable. Yeah.
I think the residents are concerned because it brings down the quality, the value of the home.
They also talked about flooding.
Yeah, I know. But-
One way is to put semi-permeable driveways.
I think pacers are one of the things, but we're talking like loads of gravel just on top of of grass. And the other one I emailed you about was, and this is not because someone brought it up to, it's just I've seen it, the cars blocking the sidewalks. And I know that once we get,
You mean the entrances?
Driveways?
The
Yeah.
driveway entrances, yeah. Yep.
yeah, and folks are having to walk out in the street.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. And I told folks I would bring it up here, and I did.
Thank you very much.
Stick to my word.
We appreciate it. We're going to continue to work hard to recruit that parking enforcement officer, and if we can get staffing back as well, we will shift officers back to doing more parking enforcement as well. Deal with this.
Let me say a comment to that. Thank you for bringing this up with Councilmember Hampton. But yeah, a couple weeks ago or last month, the city manager gave us like 5 pages of court enforcement still pending. I mean, they're out there doing work.
Yeah.
And we are short-staffed, so we but there was over 200 pending cases.
Yeah, 200.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're still doing it. My second point was that, we talked about the community maintenance group sending out education flyers or pieces like this. So, I mean, mattresses left out, and this trash left out after, what, certain days. This is something I think the community maintenance group can handle, and maybe put these education pieces out there, let the residents know that, hey, you can't leave this out here. This is bulk trash pickup.
And that's on us, yeah, because we got to get items as a staff back to that group so they can help push out, and that's something we got to work on.
Yeah, so it's in our list of things to do. It's just like, we're working in conjunction with the staff to get it done. It's just unfortunately not going to happen overnight.
Right.
But in the meantime, there are a stopgap measure, or I should say a short-term measure, is the variable sign like we did a few months, or maybe it was last year, I can't remember, about bulk pickup.
Right now, we're using those as priority. We were using them for library opening, and then now for trash as well, because we don't want anyone saying, hey, we didn't let you know about trash.
Do we have a demolition date for the old city hall?
It could be any time now, because they disconnected the utility services. Do you have an update, Keith? Any day now, it can happen, but it's going to be a slow process from what we were told. It's not going to be yeah, correct. They're going to do internal demolition, and kind of over a few days, start tearing it down.
Fireworks.
I think everybody's curious for that date.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions or anything? Okay, next we have a closed session. City Attorney, would you read us into closed session? Is Dean still with us?
1 second, let me get the,
He's on. He's looking at
okay, I recommend the governing body go into closed meeting to discuss 2 prospective businesses where no previous announcement has been made of the business's interest in locating in the city, and to consult with the city attorney regarding 2 legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by the city attorney pursuant to paragraphs 5 and 8 respectively of subsection 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Okay, we'll go into closed session, take a 5-minute break.
Thank you all for coming out.